You're listening to the Terrible Christian Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome to the Terrible Christian Podcast. This is episode number 3. I am very thankful to have my guest here today. He is a friend and a fellow Christian, a fellow business owner who just sold his business. And, we had a topic that we were going to talk about actually a couple times. It's probably changed about 6 or 7 times, but the original topic was, hey man, like you have experienced some of the things I'm experiencing as far as business. We were going to talk about time management with our children, our wives, and Christ, and how that works when you're having to, actually work, 60, 80, 100 hours a week or whatever it is to make sure that your business is successful. But I kind of had this conviction to talk to you because I really thought about you a lot after this second episode with Samantha. It was about open and honest, discussions and letting other Christian brothers and sisters know, truth about you in the right setting. It wasn't about spilling the beans, just being a total train wreck. It was, when you need help, don't hide the ugly, and that's a focus of this podcast. And last episode, watching it back, I thought that I was helping Samantha coach her on how to be more open. She's very shy, and we obviously dove into those reasons. But then through some self-reflection, I realized that I wasn't being open in a different way. And you're a big part of that story. So I really want to have you on because I'm fascinated by your motivations and who you are as a person, because to be honest, as this is the point of this podcast, I wrongly judged you at times. And it was through your, persistence, your love for other people that kind of, latched onto me in a way. And to give you a little backstory, as some of you know and have heard in this podcast, I was an atheist, it's hard to say, about 11 years ago, before becoming a Christian, having kind of that conversion. And so in that atheistic mindset, almost like Samantha was being coached to, not talk about anything to do with your family, be very private, very shy, I was conditioned through my beliefs to not trust Christians, to think that they're hypocrites, to, you go into church and you just have these negative, judgmental thoughts because of my own insecurities in my faith and who I was. And another point that really kind of helps you and anyone else listening understand where I was before that was, as an atheist, before I knew the love of God, I truly hated myself, like could not stand myself. And in that, I saw all the negative in people. I didn't look at the positive. I didn't look to love. I didn't look for them to love me. I looked at all the things that I thought was wrong with people. And I didn't realize till watching the episode that I was still having the ramifications of that past, kind of belief and knowledge, or, value set, I should say, that I had, and how it still kind of pops up in my life. And so with Eric, I started going to our church, Adventure Christian Church, and I guess I still had some of those feelings. And Eric, I don't remember, it might have been the first time we went, I don't know, but it was pretty early on when my family and I started going that you were like, hey man, I'm Eric, and we're just in a way very, very loving and wanting to have this, friendship, fellowship, brotherhood with me. I didn't understand that. Like,
well, I think we first met each other during that welcoming time at church. Like where you get up, shake hands. Of course, we're not doing that now because of COVID.
Yeah.
But that's I think when we first met, and I just went up and introduced myself. That's what you're supposed to do during the welcome time.
Right.
Greet visitors that come in, and I think just something clicked. I felt you were real. Like you made eye contact with me. You talked to me, and pretty quickly we shared some common interests. So I think that's what led to that further pursuing, I guess, of that friendship.
And that's a good way of putting it, because from that point it was like, and Eric knows this about me now, but I am, for the most part, an open book. I try to be, because I feel like that's the best way to relate and to really get to know someone. And I, in a way, feel like anything less than that is a waste of time, because it's like, if you're going to tell me 60 or 70% of the truth in something and hide the other 30%, then that's not the authentic you. And I'm not getting to know you. I'm getting to know the 60%, or the, part that you want me to know. And so sometimes I'm to a fault open, and it's different. But so I'm that way once I get like talking to someone, but I'm not the person to initiate it because of those past fears and stuff. And so, I didn't want it to really go any further than, hey, nice to see you again at church, buddy, kind of deal, because of my own issues, my own crap. And you stayed on it, even when I got to the point where I misjudged you and misjudged your intention on it, and was like, dude, like, what are you doing? What is the purpose of this? Why do you keep trying to like be a part of my life? And before I go any further, I gotta say thank you, like from the bottom of my heart. I truly appreciate the the love. It's how Christian brothers and sisters should treat each other. It's also how Christians should treat unbelievers, because it's a long journey from hating yourself to understanding God's love and accepting it and loving yourself.
Well, and I don't even feel like I did that much. I thought he overreacted quite a bit, to be honest.
There we go.
Like, I'd send him like Facebook messages or text messages like, hey man, haven't heard from you, haven't seen you. I know you were really busy with work at that time, and
that too.
you had to miss some Sundays at church, and that was our main interaction, on Sunday mornings, and just didn't hear back from you, and I didn't give up on that. Like I would text you again or send you another message, and I think that's when you started thinking like, this is weird. I'm not talking to this guy, and he keeps trying to talk to me, which most people would probably have that reaction.
Yeah, maybe not as bad as me, but that's what this is about, is being open and honest, and that was reality. That's what happened. But what fascinates me, and kind of what I want to dive into and really kind of learn about you, is maybe, where does that come from? Not in the sense of, I guess, how does it relate to your relationship with Jesus? Like what what makes you want to be persistent in loving others?
Well, and let me say, I don't do that with everybody that comes into our church.
Sure.
I just think that, you and I hit it off. I felt like you were a family looking for a place to call home, and
100%.
I don't know, man. Just those people get put into your life. Like, I don't think there's any coincidences. And when you listen to that pull on your heart to reach out to those people, I mean, I think we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So, it goes back to, I think, growing up, like my family, my parents were extremely hospitable. My brother's less than 2 years younger than me. We're very close. And, we always had friends over. Friends always stayed the night at our house. I don't know what my parents spent in money just feeding our friends, but
You were that.
we were that family.
House,
Yeah.
That family.
Yeah. Where everybody hung out. And, it was because my parents they wanted a place, not where really they could keep an eye on us, but they just wanted to be welcoming to people. And it wasn't just for our friends. It was friends that they had that came over, or they hosted small groups or whatever they did, dinners at our house. But, I remember we had a boat growing up too, so we didn't always go to church because I didn't become a Christian until my sophomore year of high school. But we used to take friends to the lake with us. And my parents just gave what they had to whoever was around, and shared what they had with whoever was around. And I think that was put on both, I think, me and my brother. We grew up kind of doing the same, like, liked having people over and hanging out with friends, and just being welcoming to those around us. I think our house now is the same way. We love having people over for game nights or dinner, or just to hang out and talk. So I think a lot of that goes back to my mom and dad and the impression that they had on me. And then I was also just going to say that I think I got this from my father, but just the sense of urgency to get back to somebody when they reach out to you. Yeah. So that common courtesy of, like, hey, if somebody texts me, I want to text them back as fast as I can. Yeah. And I don't know. I guess that's keeping that good communication with others. I think is important. I have no emails that go unread. I have no text messages that go unanswered. That's a point of pride for me, I guess. I think it's a little too much at times, but it distracts me from things that I should be focusing on. But people like it when you're responsive to them. Yeah. People feel cared for when you take the time to get back to them quickly and answer that question that they have, or that you just call to check and see how they're doing, or send them a text message just to say what's up. People want that kind of community with others, that interaction with other people.
Yeah.
So,
which is, something as I don't want to speak in too generalized terms and box, Christians in, but I do feel like it's, we've moved a lot, like in my life, with my wife and before knowing her. And so I've been to, over the last 10 plus years, a lot of churches, and there's kind of like this segmented, once you're in a kind of group, you don't let people in kind of deal, because it's a comfort thing, right? And a lot of the people at our church have been there for a long time. They've known each other. They know everything, about each other. Well, not everything, but they know a lot about each other's lives, and really kind of have that. And I think it's a special thing within our church. And it is rare, because I have been to a lot of churches. And I think that the importance, relating it back to Christ, is, we have this special relationship with our God, a personal God that loves us. And if we and he wants that relationship because God the Father, it's like the same thing I want for my children you want for yours. Like, you want to love them and you want them to love you and you want to help them. And sometimes that means disciplining them so that they understand that it's like, no, I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to help you learn so that you can have more joy and peace and, things in your life when we're not doing it, not there every day. And that's what God the Father wants with us. And Jesus really, even if you look at the beginning of church, like the first churches, it was like not this, building as much, and not, it was these small communities of people learning about God's character, researching and being blown away by the truth of the scriptures, and doing life together so that we can tackle. And it's almost like a second shield in a way, because it's like we too often as Christians, in my opinion, forget that, hey, like, God has your back. Like, Jesus is your shield, man. Like, go out and don't worry about these stresses. Do not have anxiety. I mean, he tells us not to have anxiety, to trust in him, and we don't do that enough. But I think with people like you and people that are like our, people in our church, really wanting to have that kind of fellowship, that relationship is a huge thing.
Well, and it's sorry, not to interrupt you,
No,
but
go.
it's bearing each other's burdens.
Yes.
I mean, it's like you said, living life together in community. I mean, it starts where you live, loving your neighbor, loving your neighbor as yourself, like not loving them for what they can give you. It's and that's hard sometimes, man. For everybody. Like last night, my daughters play with the neighborhood girls all the time, and our next door neighbor's little girl slipped going down the driveway and scraped her skin up, scraped her knee up, and we brought her in our house, and my wife and I are doctoring her, cleaning her wounds, and putting bandages on her while her mom came over, and after she got home from work, and her mom stands in our kitchen and starts talking to her about her work day. And I mean, that's where like those relationships happen, and those kind of things bring you closer together, where you can share life, where you can share. She sat there for 20 minutes and talked about her frustrations, her struggles with work, and we sat there and listened, and that's what makes people feel cared for. Like. Our neighbors on our other side, Mike and Heidi. Mike is the editor for the Christian Standard, and he works from home. And we went on vacation for a week, my family. He cut my grass while I was gone. Like every day, like we take trash cans up, he brings our trash can down for us. Small things like that you can do just to say, hey, like, I'm here if you need anything.
Yeah, and it goes so far. Like, it's those small little things are gestures that, like, to you when you're doing them, and you've told me like helping and things like that are one of your gifts, like one of the things that one of your spiritual gifts, and one of the things that gives you joy to do. But like, it's interesting because you probably don't hear the true meaning of like those little gestures, and it's like, for example, right now with me telling you about the persistence and what it meant to me. I mean, I didn't spill over the eyelid, but I started tearing up because it meant that much. And it's those little things. I mean, just you offered to come paint, and I got rid of my worldly kind of, pride, humbled myself because I don't like help. I don't want anyone to help. But I'm like, you know what? He wants to, and it's something that, it's his way of showing love. Why would I deny you of showing love? I don't know. I just think it's so incredible. It's so nice. But at the same time, this is a podcast about reality, and there has to be a time where you've been what I would consider a good friend to someone, and it's, bitten you, and have, like, how do you continue? Like, what's your motivation behind, continuing to say, I'm going to do this?
Well, it's not about me. Like,
Amen.
it's about just loving the people around you.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that Christ loved us, we can spend our days living for ourselves, or we can make choices that benefit others, and also benefit us in the process.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm in a, you talked about me owning a business, and it was extremely difficult starting off doing that, and relied on friends and family to help get that going, because I couldn't have done that by myself.
Sure.
And everyone at some point in their life is going to need help from somebody else. So are we willing to give that to them, or are we going to look after our own self-interests?
Yeah, that makes sense. And then on the receiving side, are we going to let our pride get in the way?
Well, and I think that's the big thing that men do, right?
Yes.
As a man, we want to take care of everything. We want to provide for our family, and asking for help looks weak, right?
Feels wrong.
Yeah. But it's not.
No.
I mean, we all take pride in the facts that we can build things ourselves, or earn enough money to provide for our families. But it's about relationships. It's not about like trying to be successful and show the world what you did. It's about taking care of other people. So
100%. And the other thing about what you said, and it aligns with, Jesus and having and living for God, like fully living for God, and having, Jesus be at the center of your heart, your mind, your hands. If we are not living that life, then God can't work through us, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're living for ourselves. So we can't hear, we don't see, God saying, knock, knock, I want you to, do this because it's going to glorify my kingdom. So, for example, relating it to your spiritual gift and wanting to help others, if you didn't do that, you may be denying God's will for you interacting in someone's life that would bring that person potentially to Jesus. And so that's such an important reason why we're here, other than having the choice to choose to love God, is to do his work.
I shared some of the stories about loving on my neighbors, and I don't want any of that, that doesn't come from me, that comes from Christ, and I don't want to take any of that credit from him. Mm-hmm. I think at times that is something that I struggle with, just where my motives are. Why do I want to do this nice thing for somebody? Is it so somebody else can recognize that and tell me how awesome I am? Or is it because I just want to love them? Yes. And what if I did that anonymously? What if I did that where nobody could see? Could I do that? Yes. So we constantly have to check ourselves and check our heart. God, are we really doing this for you, or just to be looked at by others as a good person?
And that really, I feel that so much. I relate to that so much right now, because that is the most terrifying aspect of me doing this podcast. Is I never, not for 1 second, not for a millisecond, want it to be about me. I don't even want to be on this, but I want people, regular people, to hear truth, to hear, that we are not perfect, not to follow us, that we falter in our walks with Jesus, but to follow Jesus, to look at his life. And when he's at the center, life is incredible. No matter what suffering we may face, it's still like this joy and peace that we feel when we live a Christ-centered life. And man, that's a terrifying thing, because it's like this world's so focused on the me, the selfishness, the self-absorbed kind of society that we're living in, where everything's likes, and you kind of get your self-value from how well you do online or something. And it's more so in the younger generation, like you and I. Before this podcast, you guys can look at my timeline, but I didn't post. Like, I didn't, because I got to the point where it's like, I don't want attention. Like, I don't deserve it. My thoughts are no better than anyone else's. So this is an awkward thing for me. But I love having people like you, Sam, and I have others lined up that just get to show the world, however many people, that life is hard, but it's pretty amazing when Jesus is at the center. So I guess, we can transition a little bit into some of the work and family, I guess, time spent, and kind of how you juggle that. Because I know, being a business owner, that you failed miserably multiple times. And if you don't admit that, then it's a lie. And there's times where you had to look and go, oh, like, I haven't, like, I feel like I don't know my kids the last month or whatever.
Where I didn't sleep at night. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're killing your body.
I have a lot more gray hair because I was a business owner. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that was one of the revelations that made me start this. Is I realized I wasn't spending time with my family. I wasn't spending time with my daughter. She let me know that I wasn't, which was heartbreaking. And, then I started thinking about how little time I actually spend with God, and that changed my life. So, I guess, tell me about starting a business. You kind of said multiple people helped and you did that, but at what point did you start realizing that, or start questioning the amount of time that you're spending on that versus things that are more eternally prosperous?
Well, of course, running my own business, it has to be successful and profitable for me to take care of my family, which is pretty high on the priority list.
Yeah.
I know at times I did sacrifice my time with God for work. I'd get up in the middle of the night to work on stuff because I was just thinking about it and couldn't get it off my mind. Or I'd be waiting on invoices to be paid, and they're 15 days, 30 days late.
Wondering how you're going to pay payroll.
Yeah, how I'm going to cover payroll, the end of the week.
Yeah.
Where that money's going to come from. And that happened multiple times. And I always figured it out, sometimes the day before. But it was hard. Relying on other people isn't always easy. People, lived by that contract that I sent them and paid me on time, it wouldn't have been as big of an issue. But people disappoint us.
Yeah.
But you still have to continue to work with them. So I think that's kind of the theme of this whole.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what I was going to say. It's like, as an atheist, as a person who hated himself, of course I hated other people. Like, I just didn't like people. And I don't know that you can start loving others until you fully understand, not even fully, because I still don't fully understand the character God. And that's just of what he's revealed. There's obviously even more that we would never be able to comprehend. But the reality is with not liking people, and then you become a Christian, and it's almost like you have to learn to start loving people through their faults, through their everything. That's a tough thing, but at the same time, it sounds like you were much more wise and mature in that kind of journey.
Well, and I mean, my brother,
Yeah.
you know me, we're competitive.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You know that we don't really shy away from a challenge either.
That's true.
So why would I stop from continuing to share something that's the most important thing in my life with somebody, which is Christ? It will change their life.
100%.
It will save them.
Yeah.
So if it takes me texting you one more time, even though I know I'm probably irritating you, like if I get a response, hey, that starts a conversation.
Yep.
And we can work it out from there. Like, and that's what happened. I think you showed up in church finally. I don't know how long it was, but
well, to give some context here, I work 6 days a week.
Sure.
I get 1 day off, and I also work
giving
insane.
you a hard time.
Oh no, and I deserve it. But I
Yep.
want people to understand. That is something that you think about as a Christian. It's like, man, like church, like. Well, and I've even come to not a greater understanding. Maybe a church is different in my mind now than it ever has been before, because of this kind of switch I was talking to you about before the podcast started, where I really feel for the first time that my relationship with Jesus is transformative and has really changed my heart, changed my desires in this world, that every day now, every minute that I have free, I'm spending either in the Word, praying, watching videos, listening to sermons, thinking about, questions that are hard to answer in the Bible. Like, I'm spending my entire time with God whenever I have a free second. And it's a lot, because it's like kind of like the obsession with work. When you're starting a business, that's kind of where I'm at right now in my walk, and it's great.
Well, and it's because you are the church.
Yeah.
Like the church isn't a building with four walls and a steeple. Like,
100%.
You believe in Christ, that he died for you, that he died for your sins so that you could go to heaven. You're part of the church.
Yeah. Well, and so to that point, what has changed for me with church itself is it's now like the true Sabbath for me. It is that day of rest. It's the like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna try and stop thinking as much and just feel the presence of God, be with my brothers and sisters, love others, which is, like you said, difficult to do in COVID right now. But it's, I missed quite a bit of church.
Well, and obviously the best place to be with those that believe the same as you is showing up on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
So, you had showed up, and I just went up to greet you because it'd been a while, and I missed you, and said, "Josh, where you been?" And what was your response?
Oh, was this the attack time?
Yeah.
No, man, I can't. I was actually trying to think of this earlier today, but it was very abrasive. I'm like, I don't understand. I literally was like very confrontational and was like, I don't understand why you're,
Harassing you.
Yeah, I think I might have used the word harassing. I mean, probably did. I didn't get it. I truly didn't understand. And I hope that some of you out there that are afraid to go to church, are afraid to talk to others, or can relate to that, because I was wrong, 100%, 180 wrong. And I knew it the moment he responded, because you responded with such love and just honest, like I could see the hurt in your eyes, but the understanding, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're like, that was not my intention at all. I remember your words better than I remember mine, because I don't want to remember mine, because it was sinful. It was my old nature. It was my old value system that was popping up, even if I didn't realize it at the time. But it's like, that was not my intention at all. I just really want to get to know you. I enjoy you, and I mean, as soon as you started talking, as soon as I looked in your eyes, I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
And I apologize. And it's hard to go from abrasive and confrontational to, all of a sudden, oh, dude, my bad. Like, sorry,
Yeah.
I love you. Give
But
you a hug.
it's that, you know, us being at odds or thinking differently, and then
Yes.
and then reconciling.
Yes.
That is really what this is about. Like,
Yes.
it's how we live together. It's how we grow closer to one another. It's how we love each other. So you're not going to live with anybody and get along with them 100% of the time.
No way. No way. And love is a choice, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have free will. Otherwise, we wouldn't need Jesus to save us from our sins, because we have free will. We have to choose to love each other. And it's funny because one of the central parts of our confrontation, and then eventually, like our friendship before, during, after, definition may have changed and gotten stronger and things like that as time goes on and we know each other even more. But the core tenet within the confrontation and everything was truth. Like, I was telling you how I truly felt. I didn't, and you immediately told me how you truly felt. And without the truth on my end, without the truth on your end, we would have never been able to come together in a way that was beneficial, not just for each other, but for the kingdom of God. Like, that is loving other people. That is why truth to me is so important.
Well, and I think since then, like, we've continued that dialogue. We've continued to share, like, dude, this is where I've screwed up big time. Like, this is how I'm human, because nobody is Jesus.
No.
We all do things we shouldn't daily, make choices that we shouldn't make. Spending too much time on this instead of hanging out with my kids, or putting my phone down and looking my kid in the eye when they're trying to talk to me.
Yes.
So those are all things that we continue to have to work on to just be human with each other. And I don't know if I'm trying to think of a quote that I read earlier this week, but it's not coming to me. It was Craig Rochelle, who is a great author, wrote Christian Atheist, and I follow him on LinkedIn as well. He posts some awesome stuff. But
I'll write that down.
Craig Rochelle.
Check
Chris-
this scrolling words right here.
Yeah.
You can find it at that link.
Yeah. Christian Atheist is actually about, that book is about people that live life where, if somebody were to look at you, would they even know if you're a Christian or not?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we, as believers, we don't want that.
Yes.
We want to love people where they are, all their sins and all, understand that we're human, but continue to pursue and build that relationship, and let people know that there is something much more than them chasing after their own wants and desires day to day.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know the exact scripture, but Jesus, taught that through loving others is how to best shine the light of, Jesus, to have people know that you are a follower in Christ. And
1 Corinthians 13:1.
look at that.
I gotta look it up. I don't have it memorized, but I know
Or
that.
I got a Bible right
I know
here.
that. I know that verse. 1 Corinthians.
But that's
13:1.
so important, the loving others part.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a journey. Like, you may not be there right this second. Like, it's taken me 10 years to really understand and accept Jesus's love for me enough to really start loving others. Now it's kind of all I want to do, and that falls in that circle, that kind of sphere that I'm living in of just living for God. And I'm called to love others. So it's like a learning experience, but go ahead.
So if I speak with the tongues of man and of angels, but do not have love, I have become a noisy gong or clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and know all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. And if I give all my possessions to feed the poor, and if I surrender my body to be burned, but do not have love, it profits me nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it is not jealous, love does not brag, it is not arrogant, love does not act unbecomingly, it does not seek its own, is not provoked, does not take into account a wrong suffered, does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And it goes on, love never fails. And this is, of course, like one of the big verses that's quoted at most weddings,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
And yet 50% of our country is divorced, right?
Yeah.
Because we seek our own self-interest, you know?
Yes.
We don't love others that way.
Yeah. Well, and now you're jumping into a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I know.
That would be
I
super
know.
exciting to talk about because I have a lot of thoughts on that, and I bet you do. But the reality is God gave us the formula for the perfect marriage in the sense of the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
It was always the three, and it was a perfect marriage. And on earth, you know, the perfect marriage is when Jesus is at the center and a part of your relationship so that you and your wife have that, you know, that three, and that you are, if Jesus is at the front or at the center of the marriage, then you are not relying on your spouse for happiness, and you are not expecting them to make you happy, because both of those can be detrimental. Of course, we want our spouses to be happy, but like the reality is we are called to serve. Like that is part of and one of your awesome gifts. But we need to serve. We need to love because we're called to love. And when Jesus is at the center, it's easy. Like you want to. And when you're not doing it, you can hear it, you can feel it, and all those things. But yeah, I could go on the marriage kick for a while. I think, need to have a conversation.
You know, how
about
we treat our spouse and everyone around us comes down to, you know, what is your motivation for doing so? Like, is it because it's going to benefit you, or is it because you love them and want to care for them and see them happy? And the more we do for others, you know, the better it makes you feel too. So
yeah, and we're designed that way in the sense that it, again, like I think for a long time, and a lot of atheists I know for sure have the wrong understanding of God's rules in the Bible, right? You think it's, you know, to control you, to, you know, it doesn't seem fair, but it literally is the omniscient, you know, almighty, most powerful, most loving, perfect judge, all the things that are part of God's character. It is literally the most brilliant mind to ever exist, ever will exist, saying, hey, you, if you try to follow these to the best of your ability, then you will experience joy in life. Like it's, hey, love others. Yeah. Guess what? You get something from that. But again, it goes back to what you said. It goes back to what I've been feeling with my walk with Jesus, which is it's not a transactional thing. It's not loving to do something for someone or treat someone a certain way and expect something in return. Right. That's not love, right? So that's why I think it's so interesting, and that's why I'm so appreciative of friendship with you and others, in the sense that it's like, man, you're just a loving guy. You love because you're called to do so, but because you want to, and it makes you feel good, but you don't expect anything in return. I've never felt that. I've never seen it, and you know, I appreciate that. Do you have friends?
But I get selfish too.
Of course,
many times.
We all do.
Yeah. I'm not this complete selfless person that he's making me out to be here. I mean, I think I like to care for others for sure. I mean, I like to see the effect that it has on them. But I also, like I said earlier, struggle with like the motivation behind it. Am I doing it, you know, for them to think how awesome I am, or am I doing
Which
it?
is actually
Yeah.
something that I had a conversation with my wife at times. I was like, there were times, and I've never told him this, but there were times where I'm like, I don't know. And again, we talked about the intent, the motivation behind it. I didn't know. And there were times where I was like, it feels like, look at how perfect of a Christian I am at times. And, again, you can kind of see whether that was true or not at times. It's okay for him to battle that and struggle with that at times. That is, the part of being in the sinful, fallen world is we are enticed by things that give us greater status, greater, I guess, being godlike, because that's what the devil tries to, give you, so that you don't need God.
Right.
And so we strive for kind of that feeling, and that feeling comes in many forms, whether it's power, whether it's, just status, and, all these different things. But yeah, I felt that a few times from you, and they might not have been true. He might not have been struggling with that at that time. But you're right. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Are there times where you have the opportunity to do what you did with me, but you didn't click as much, and so you're like, nah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Turned the other way because that would have been something difficult. Like I could have spent my time doing something else for me, instead of sending a text or a phone call to, somebody else. But you know what? Like I have people in my life that love me and care deeply for me, and everybody should, So
yeah, and I guess that's the question for all of us is, are you loving others is first and foremost. Are you loving them for the right reasons? Are you loving them in a biblical way? Because that is the best kind of love for multiple reasons, but the main reason is to glorify Jesus, right?
Yep.
And then the benefits that we receive after that is just, through God's grace that we get to, feel some joy.
They're not
you don't deserve it, right?
They're not going to be earthly either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our reward is in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to show up in heaven and for God to say, "Well done." Like,
Yeah.
That's my desire. So every day, you make choices, and those choices determine if you're going to worship yourself or worship God. So,
Isn't it incredible? I had this thought the other day that the greatest gift that we will ever receive is also the giver. As in, God is both. Like, he is the gift and the giver. Like, it just blows my mind that I don't know about you. Like, when you think you just told me kind of, your dreams of what your interaction in heaven will first kind of be like. But for me, like, I still, like, I don't even want to know anything. It's like that song, I forget who sings it, where, like, I'm just gonna, will I fall at your feet and just,
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Of course, great movie, great story, all that. But, like, I can't even believe that we have the opportunity to be with perfection forever and to feel the perfect love without all the obstacles, all the sins, all the things that separate us from that love. And it just blows my mind. That's the amazing thing about the gospel is the fact that you and I do not deserve it. We can do nothing, no matter how well we love people, no matter how much we try to do good in this world. We are not the judge. Good is God. We are not good because we are fallen people. We love sin. Like, that's why we keep going back to it. Yep. I bet you can agree with me, but there's not a day in my life where I haven't sinned. Do I want to? Right. Heck no. Like, I don't want to.
So the same way that we reconcile to each other when, we have these disagreements, or, when we're just real with each other, when somebody's getting on our nerves and have that confrontation, we need to reconcile to Christ too.
100%, which is something that I fear is missing a little bit. And I could be wrong. I mean, anyone out there want to disagree, go for it. But I think as Christians, we fall short a little bit of what Jesus commands, in the sense that it's like, oh, we're saved, no more asking for forgiveness. Like, Jesus washed all my sins away, which is true in the eternal sense. But if you don't understand that you should be repenting, because Jesus also calls you to repent, but that you should be repenting, then you don't understand how incredible the actual dying on the cross and the whole gospel, the salvation that God gave us through grace and through sacrificing his son. You don't understand how great that is if you're not still sorry for the sins that you're committing.
And I know there's people out there that don't think that, what they've done could ever be forgiven, which isn't true. I mean, Jesus died for all sins, past, present, and future. Yeah. He knows every decision, every choice you're going to make in your life, and yet he still died for you before you made those choices.
And here's a great point to that is, been studying Matthew a little bit, and in the beginning of the book of Matthew, you have the genealogy of Jesus. And you're like sitting there going, this thing is boring. Like, why do I care about it? But the deeper that you look into that section of Matthew, you start to understand, first and foremost, when God promises us something, he fulfills it. Yep. That is, the genealogy itself is saying, hey, I promised you this would happen. Here's the proof. The second thing, if you dive deep into the genealogy in the first book, in the book of Matthew, in the first section, is you see how incredibly screwed up these great, characters in the Bible are. Mm-hmm. Abraham absolutely threw his wife under the bus. How many times? Not once, but twice. Like, literally called her his sister, and let her be given to a king, another man. He was a coward. He was not brave in God. And you just go through the line there. The Bible does a great job of smearing mud on every single character in the Bible except for one, because that is us. That is us. We are not perfect, but we can be seen as perfect through loving and trusting and believing in Jesus as our Savior. And that has been the plan since before we were born, and it's beautiful. But Eric is right. Like, there's nothing you have done that can't be forgiven. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Because, again, it goes back to the transactional, transformative relationship with Jesus. He changes your heart. Mm-hmm. He will make you new. And it's really a choice.
Well, and it's understanding how great God's love is for us. Like, I mean, we know how awful, terrible Christians we are, and yet Christ still loves us during that. But I never really felt or completely comprehended how great his love was for me until I had a child of my own.
Amen.
And looking at my daughter, Maddie, and thinking about offering her up for, the worst person in the world, to die for that person. mean, that's love. Like, that's sacrifice. And that's exactly what God did with his son, Jesus.
Well, and the most incredible thing about that whole deal is, is a perfect love, a perfect relationship. And so I can't imagine the pain, felt there in doing that. But we, on the outside looking in, might be considered, good fathers. I mean, certainly we've read enough news stories to know that there are some atrocious fathers out there. But like, we are nothing compared to the perfect father. And like, there's a lot of you, and I know, actually, you probably know who I'm talking to. Yes, you and you and you and you, that have really had some father issues. But what you need to understand is that you've always had the perfect father. And what you said rings so true for me, because I misunderstood so many aspects of God's character until I became father, and then so much made sense. Like, for example, God is omniscient, so he knows whether you're going to choose to love Jesus or not, and have faith in him, for your salvation. But he never stops loving you. Well, how can that be? Like, if he already knows you're not going to choose him, and you don't want a relationship with him, and you're going to reject him, how does he still love you? Well, when you think of the perfect father, even a good father, you and I would do what God does, and God does it even better than us. But if my daughter or son, or either of your daughters, rejected you, like got in heavy into drugs, just kept making the wrong choices, doing everything to just destroy their lives, whatever it is, we would do everything within our power to keep chasing them, to keep trying to be there for them, to love them. Yep. And that would never end until we die, right? And that's God.
Most people would, I think.
I think
I mean,
so too.
there are men out there, I think, that choose to abandon their children. And I think a lot of where we get our view of God comes from the relationship, of course, that we had with our Father, ourselves. So, if I left my kids and my family, I think my daughters would definitely grow up with a whole different belief of who God is, and trusting, whether he really loved them,
Yeah, it does. It does affect your understanding of love in so many ways. And it's, from the girl side, the woman's side, that abandonment can really allow them to want to seek love in the wrong places, right? And same for men, but I feel like a lot of the guys that I know, and myself included in this, because I come from a broken home and with father issues, and a lot of learning on both sides with both of my dads. But I think we tend to rebel and tend to have more anger, and it like manifests itself in a different way, but both are trust issues. And it goes back to the whole marriage thing in a way. It's like, that's why it is so important to maintain that relationship, especially within a family, and why I think we see so many negative effects with single motherhood and people growing up that way, because like, if God the Father is the one who invented love, then that shows you how important it is to be a father and to love your children correctly. Now,
and to pick up our cross daily, right? And realize that it's not about you.
Yeah,
there's something much bigger than you.
100%.
Yeah.
Isn't it awesome being a father to girls?
It is. I was on a call the other night, and my 8-year-old came up to give me a hug and kiss goodnight, and 2 other guys were on the call with me, and they're like, "Man, it must be nice to be cared for by your kids like that." And I was like, why God gave me girls, because boys don't do that. So
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's the funniest thing. Like, I was terrified to have a girl before Winslow was born, and because I didn't know what you were supposed to do. I have a sister, but like I just didn't know how to be a father to a girl. In my head, I thought I knew how to be, a father to a boy, and he's gonna love sports and blah blah blah. And again, my faith wasn't very strong at that time, or at least has developed and grown since then. But having a daughter has been so incredible because it's like, oh man, like my main job is to love her, love my wife, show her what love is, be her support system. Yes, we are trying to raise her with morals and with the love and understanding of who Jesus is and all that. But it's funny, since you don't have boys, the minute my boy was like born, I felt already like harder on him than I ever have been with a girl.
Yeah.
Because there's this
girls soften your heart.
yeah, they do, but there's also this crazy sense of responsibility when it comes with a boy. Like, it is my job to teach you to be a man. And I guess that's something I need to pray about, honestly, because maybe I'm not loving him the way that God loves me. I'm doing part of it. I want to.
Sounds like a topic for another episode here.
100%.
Yep.
100%. And we've probably been doing this for a while now. But I'm grateful for you. No, you're not perfect. You make mistakes. You are a terrible Christian. But I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your persistence. And I hope that you can take what you've learned from how I felt with what you did and, push yourself to, go outside that comfort zone a little bit and love people that you may not, have the energy or the connection or whatever, because, man, what you did for me was incredible. And I hope other people get to feel that. I know that for me, I've already started my journey of trying to love others better, and let them. That's like why I'm telling you how I feel about you. I want you to know how you've helped my life, and I implore and plead for everyone out there to just love other people, because this world is not easy, and we often feel alone, and we don't have to.
Nope.
Yeah,
so just a challenge for anyone that listens to this: just do something for somebody else this week. Like, it will mean something to them, but you'll also feel pretty great about it too. And don't do it for that motivation of like how people are going to see you. Like, just do something to care for someone, to love somebody, because you want to love them, because you want to, change their day, make their day better. I mean, if we all did that to each other, I think we would have a lot less fighting on social media. We would just love each other better. And I don't know what I'm trying to say right now.
Well, I mean, and that's okay, because what you are trying to say and what you have said is truth. It is the importance of this, and why we even do this, why I sit down with you, is that we are not everything that we can be. We can be better. Whether you're a Christian or non-believer or a believer in a different faith, the tenets of God's, plan for our lives and our understanding of God still will enrich your life, because they're good. Like, it doesn't matter, I mean, to me, it matters a lot whether you believe, in Jesus. But at the same time, what I'm saying is, if you're not a believer, just try loving others. You deserve love. They deserve love. And
as a believer, just use the gifts and abilities that God's given you. Like, I'm not gonna bring anyone closer to Christ probably by getting up on the stage and preaching a sermon, because I'm really not gifted that way. I'm our pastor is, but I I use what I got. So I love people, and let them feel loved, because I reach out to them and I'm compassionate towards them, and I just try to be part of their life.
Yeah. And don't hide the bad things about yourself, or the things that you're working on, or the struggles, or the sins that are hard to overcome, because
People won't feel close to you if you.
yeah, that, and people begin to, it alienates people from faith, because what happens is, if all you see and hear is the good stuff, and you look at your own life as a non-believer and go, I don't feel like that. I can't do that. I'm not that good. Like, I don't fit there. You do fit here. You fit with Jesus, and that's just the truth, and that's love, and we'll end there, because
It's a good ending spot.
yeah, Jesus loves you. We love you. Thank you for listening to the Terrible Christian Podcast. It is certainly time to shine. And Eric, let's get to work, bro.
All right, man.
I wish I could shake your hand, or hug you, actually.
We're not 6 feet apart.
I know.
Come here, bring it in.
We're breaking the rules. We're terrible. Love you, man.
Thank you. Sure.